Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is that time of year again where we're talking about the homeschool year as a whole, and every single year I love making this video called Curriculum Hits and Misses, where I share what worked well for our family this year and why, and what didn't work well for our family this year and why. And the reason that I share this video year to year, and kind of I've built that now with a few of these videos, is to give you an idea of what like long-term homeschooling looks like, and how some things that were a hit one year could be a miss the next year, and just how outside circumstances affect each individual homeschool. These, and I say this every year, but just for clarification, this is not a critique of the curriculum as a whole. I actually don't believe that, you know, a curriculum could be a hit or a miss for all ever. Homeschooling is so individual, it's so personal to each family, and what works for one family might not work for another. And again, my reasoning behind why something was a hit or why it was a miss has a lot more to do with my consistency and effort and prep than it has to do with the curriculum as a whole. As a matter of fact, all of our misses, almost every single year, come back in our rotation the following year. I still plan to do them again because they were a miss for reasons outside of the content. Usually, like I said, it has to do with my prep work, or sometimes things just really pique our interest and we run hard toward those things, and some other things get left in the dust. But the cool thing about homeschooling, and the one thing I really try to really communicate, especially to new homeschoolers when I'm talking to them, is that we are not measured by the success of one homeschooling year. We tend to have opportunity to grow across many years. So if you're like us and you started in preschool and you plan to go through senior year of high school, you have a lot more time than an August through a May calendar year. And so while a lot of us are still kind of bound to those constraints of a typical classroom year in a school setting, mentally we still kind of try to stick to that. That's not how it actually goes in homeschool. And if I've learned anything for the last 11 or so years of home education, it is just that we grow and we change, and things look different year to year. And when you step back and you survey the experience of home education as a whole, the strengths build on one another, and throughout an entire education, it paints a beautiful picture. And you know, their buckets really are just so full of wonderful things. So to try to measure homeschool in one August through May season, especially if it was a difficult season, is really just harmful. It's not always the best thing to do, to see yourself as a failure because you had one hard year, or to throw a curriculum out as a whole because you didn't do it great one particular year, is really not necessary. And I just really encourage anyone who feels discouraged this time of year to step back and kind of survey the experience as a whole, or look ahead at the time you have left and just see that there's opportunity to continue the pursuit of truth and goodness and beauty, and you don't have to chalk it all up to failure because you had one hard year. So that being said, that was a very long intro and disclaimer before I start sharing any of these things, but I just kind of wanted to share what's on my heart and the reason that I share these hits and misses each year. I hope it encourages you to see some things that were a hit one year be a miss another year, and just kind of follow along with my family as we you know, have some great years and have some hard years. I hope it encourages you guys if you're kind of feeling like you're in the same position. So I'm gonna go ahead and share what some of our hits were this year and some of our misses this homeschool year. I have chosen curriculum that I teach, not my kids' independent subjects, this year. If you're new here, by the way, hello, my name's Abby, and I have 5 kids. 4 of them are currently homeschooled, 1 of them is an infant. So my oldest is in 8th grade. I have an 8th grade daughter, a 6th grade son, a 3rd grade son. There was some debate on that when we signed him in for church the other day. We couldn't remember. And a kindergarten daughter, and then a 1-year-old. And so really, because I said 1-year-old way too soon. We're still 6 weeks off from 1, so disregard. But the reason that I'm not talking about individual subjects this year and only talking about group subjects is because Individual subjects were a huge hit. Independent subjects were a huge hit in our homeschool this year because I was quite often with the baby and really needed them to do their independent work. So math for my older ones, and handwriting and science for my oldest daughter, things that they do on their own, the things that don't require effort or a lot of effort or prep work or time from me, they sailed through and finished a lot of that in March or April, just because of how often I needed them to do that versus the more family type of subjects. So I decided to just focus on family subjects or subjects that required my effort and attention this year when kind of sharing how our school year went. So first things first, I will share my top 3 hits. I decided to do 3 hits and 3 misses. So number 1 top hit this school year, and if I actually look back on the school year as a whole, this is the thing that really stands out, is Redefining School for my older 2. So for my middle schoolers, and I just printed out their May lessons. It's the beginning of May when I'm filming this right now, so just printed out their May lessons for them to do. Now, Redefining School is an online middle school literature survey. So every single month they're studying a different American author this year. I think next year it's going to be like a world one if they took the American course this year. So they're studying American literature, they're learning about the authors, and then they do different types of they learn different things about literature based on that author's work. So looking through what they have here for May, they're learning about American realism, reading Frank Stockton's The Lady or the Tiger. Looks like they're going over fairy tales and fables and the elements that are in each of those things. They are going to have a Zoom call, learning about context clues, and then their Zoom meeting this week answers some different questions about, let's see here. Okay, so discussion questions. They have 2 Zoom calls a month. Then they're gonna be looking at open and closed resolutions, a fractured fairy tale. They're going to be, this is so fun. This one looks really extra fun this time. And then their last Zoom meeting looks like an author's chair. Sometimes they have an author's chair, sometimes they have a poetry coffee house where they share some of their poetry and have a treat in the Zoom meeting. Looks like this is one of those author chairs where they sit down and share their work. As I'm just kind of zooming over this quickly, scanning over it. So Redefining School was a really big hit for my kids. It is for middle schoolers, I would say like 5th through 9th grade, depending on where your kids are at. I do plan for Bella to do it next year in 9th grade. This was something my kids really enjoyed. I love that it was printable. They had some worksheets that they could work on, but also had PDF links for them to watch the videos. I think one of the reasons that this was one of our top hits was because the videos were 5 to 10 minutes, a couple days a week, and so they were able to keep up. If we had a week that was tough, the next week they could catch up. And they really loved the Zoom calls and interacting with other students across the country. So actually across the world. There are some international students in this course. So yes, Redefining School was one of our top hits this year. It was something that they really enjoyed. I loved watching literature come alive to them. I loved overhearing some of their discussions on the Zoom calls. I think they really grew this year, and this was something that I really desired for them to have a sense of community with, because literature opens up some great discussions, and I can have talks with them all day long at the table, but when they're having peer discussions about what they're reading and what they're working on, it just really changes the dynamic. And so it's been a great opportunity for them. And like I said, we plan to continue next year. Now, what day is this video going up? Shortly, I believe within the next week after I post this video, she is opening enrollment for the following year. She only opens it up for a couple weeks at a time, but I will remind you guys when enrollment's open. But if you want to follow along with her, I will link her information in the description box down below so that you don't miss when enrollment opens, because like I said, it's a short enrollment period, and I will have a discount code for you when that opens up as well. So top hit this year was literature, which is saying something in a baby year, because again, it's not because of me. Thankfully, it was a great program. last year, I think one of our top hits was Shakespeare, which took me by surprise. So I will say literature took me by surprise as well. It's something that I was concerned about as my kids got older. A true concern for me was like whether or not I would steward, you know, the resources that we have available well or not. And thankfully that came along at the right time. So it's a hit, makes me really happy. And I look forward to all of my kids going through that program. Next hit, I will kind of stick with my middle schoolers and say a combo. It's kind of cheating. I'm giving you a combo of 2 subjects, but these 2 subjects from, or these 2 resources from Simply Charlotte Mason, the Your Business Math series and Joshua's Journal. I had time each day carved out to spend with my middle schoolers, and we would alternate between these 2 things most days that they didn't have literature. And they loved this. And I think one of the reasons that these happened to be a hit for us, and I do believe that one of these were a miss last year. So again, that just goes to show it's not about the curriculum. I'm not giving a critique of the curriculum. I'm genuinely sharing our experience with curriculum year to year. But one of these were a miss because I didn't have the prep time involved, even though it's low prep. But I think one of the reasons that this was a hit for us this year is because my kids would sit together and look forward to working on this together. And even though this pet store math is really, I think it's like 4th through 6th or 7th grade age range, it's still really great practical business math that even Bella, who's in 8th grade, benefited from. And then Joshua's Journal is an Old Testament law story where you read about, you read a story, you know, just like a made up story of something that's going on, and then you look at the Old Testament and decide what the law is and what the proper response would be according to Old Testament law. And so I really just enjoyed that table time with my older 2, whether we were doing the business math or Joshua's Journal. And so I kind of have these grouped together just because I think the hit would be enrichment with my older 2 this year. So really enjoyed these this year. And like I said, one of these was a miss last year. Both of these are staying in the rotation as my kids grow older. I think that Isabella and Jesse want to do the sports store next year, and I'll probably bring Eli in on that as well because he'll be in 4th grade next year. The last hit this school year was, because I spent a lot of time in the summer prepping this, the last hit was 5 in a row for my kindergartner and my 3rd grader. So if you've been around here for a while, you know we're big 5 in a row fans, and we kind of utilize 5 in a row differently each year. This year I used it as the core curriculum for my elementary kids. Did a lot of prep work. My friends did some prep work. We kind of all exchanged some different units that we prepared. And so I would just pull a unit out and we were good to go. Because of that, it was a big hit and it was so sweet and so much fun. We still tended to linger over some units. For example, Storm in the Night, we hung over for a few weeks, even though I only planned 1 week's worth. So we still had time to you know, add more to that than what I had originally planned. But we had a great year with 5 in a row. We are continuing 5 in a row next year. And it's no surprise to me that we enjoyed it so much this year, but the surprise is that we were able to prepare and see it through even with a baby. So 5 in a row was a great year for us. And it's been a few years since we used 5 in a row as our core curriculum for elementary kids. I used it for Bella when she was kindergarten, 1st grade. Then we used it as supplement. So using it as core curriculum again was just very sweet and definitely a top memory and a strength in our homeschool this school year. And then I have an honorable mention because it's not necessarily something we did consistently, but it's just something that I absolutely loved teaching and using this year, and it was this How to Teach Nature Journaling curriculum. I taught this in co-op, in our Charlotte Mason style co-op, and this is an amazing curriculum, but it also works really well with the way I like to teach and the way I like to lead the kids in a co-op. So again, you know, it's not necessarily a critique of the curriculum. What's amazing for me might not be amazing for you, but this was a top favorite for me this particular year. It just worked out really well, but we only had co-op every other Monday, and so it's not something that we used every week or even every day or even every week, but it definitely stands out as we really gained skills in nature journaling this year because of this that will stick with us forever. So this was a great a hit for us this year because we built a great foundation for nature journaling this year, and I really enjoyed using it this year. So those are my hits this year and the reasons why. And now I'm gonna share some misses, but again, brace yourself. It's not about the curriculum. You're going to be surprised by what one of my big misses were this year. I was surprised, but when I was being honest with myself, I'm like, yeah, that was a miss according to how I tend to like to do this particular subject. So here we go. Here are my misses. Our misses. So the things that we didn't finish the way that I wanted to finish them, or even really start the way I wanted to start them. So miss number one, I don't have a physical thing to show you. It was our handcraft for the year, which I had planned to be watercolor. And I really had a good setup. I had everything organized. I had our projects picked. I had things very accessible. But it just came down to not finding the right place in our schedule with it and having a hard time with the baby and making it happen. So when watercolor, when painting or a new, artistic endeavor is attempted and tensions can be high for certain, kids, we had kids who were struggling, like who were getting nervous or tense about certain aspects of the different projects, and then you add a crying baby or a time limit because baby's taking a nap, and that just made me feel icky about it. I didn't want to rush it, so I thought next year would be a better year for it. So we did get a few projects done in the fall, and then we've done it for fun here and there in the spring, but as far as consistency, this was not a great year for watercolor. However, on the other hand, we started sourdough this year and it became a big time family project. And so I do think we ended up having an accidental handcraft this year regardless, even though the one that I had originally planned didn't pan out. So no worries. Like I said, I have a long-term goal with homeschooling, not a, year-to-year goal. And so we kind of stopped and plan to attempt again next year, although with a toddler that may be also difficult, although she is old enough to distract with food now. So that will probably be more likely, the route we go. So next year we will reattempt watercolor because it's something that we all really want to do. And I also want to enjoy with them. It's something that I really love. And so that was our first miss and the reason why. Our next miss is the one that I think is really gonna surprise you guys, especially because I love this subject so very much, and it is history. So this is the reason why I gave that whole intro to this video. This is not a critique of the curriculum. This is not me saying this is a miss forever, but this particular year, one of our absolute strongest subjects became one of our weakest, not because we didn't do what was in the book, but because we didn't do it the way we typically do, and it wasn't as much as we usually do with it. So did we read the first 35 or so chapters of the book? Yes. Did we do at least one of the activities from the activity book every couple of weeks? Yes. So on paper, it was a hit. We did the book and the coloring pages and the map work and checked the boxes. But for the way that I like to do history, I like to use Story of the World as a launching point to then add assigned reading, to dive deeper, to watch documentaries, to pull in artwork. I really love history, and I did not, one, prepare well for that this year with knowing we were gonna have a baby in the house. So I did not decide on my assigned reading ahead of time. I did not find those books ahead of time. And so that made us a little more vulnerable in this area to not necessarily do it as well as I would like to. And then, yeah, it just really came down to me not being prepared. And then we've already done ancient times a few years ago, so some of the projects my older kids had already done, but my younger ones hadn't, and so there was a little bit of conflict there as well. So just not really being prepared with options for other kids and assigned reading and just a general sense of enjoyment with history. It's discouraging to me, but we're moving on. We're gonna move forward. We're gonna take some time this summer and prepare, because history is one of, if not my absolute most favorite subject to teach and enjoy alongside my kids. And so I'm just disappointed that I didn't do as much with it this year, but again, we're good. We're moving forward. We're using it again next year. And I wasn't expecting that, but it is what it is. And then I kind of was expecting this, but also not. Our last miss was logic, introductory logic. This is from Canon. This literally came down to my effort and my prep work. I would say by November, I kind of knew this just wasn't gonna happen. It required a lot more prep work on my end, not as far as actual work or materials, but as far as just like me reading and understanding it myself. This was where the rubber meets the road as far as how much effort am I going to put into things. And apparently it wasn't great for me this year, but we are using it again next year. And again, I've spent some time and will continue spending time just reading through some things and making sure I understand the basics, because what happened was I didn't make myself available 3 days a week is what I wanted to do with Bella. I was very inconsistent with that, and so we would start something and then we would kind of start it again and get to the second day and then start it again, recap, and then it just wasn't a great foundation for her. And then whenever she would have questions, I wasn't exactly sure, like, wait, I don't remember what type of argument that is, and the wheels fell off of our bus here. So we're gonna restart it. I just decided that this is a curriculum that requires more consistency than just kind of grit. And so I kind of looked ahead and saw next year is gonna be a better year for us. And so, like I said, by about November, I told her, I love you, I'm sorry, I hope it's not disappointing to you because I know you were excited for this, but why don't we start fresh next year? And I don't typically love the idea of starting fresh with the curriculum. I don't think we always have to wait till August. I think that's a bad habit to just scrap something for the year whenever you're feeling down. But this one in particular, it was important that we just decided to start fresh with the start of the school year. So that was our next miss, although I'm highly looking forward to using it next year. So those are our curriculum hits and misses from the 2022-2023 homeschool year. Did any of those surprise you? I know a couple of them surprised me. Like I said, I'm gonna link some of my videos from the past down below so you can kind of see where some of these have fallen in the past or if they even landed on my hits or misses. Recap at all. And let me know in the comments down below what your top hits and misses were. I think it'd be really fun just kind of hear from other people and see how their school year went and why. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and I will see you soon. Bye guys.